The most important thing you can do for weight loss is eating when you're physically hungry and stopping when you're satisfied. I didn't even realize that I was eating when I was emotionally hungry, not physically hungry. And once I started doing this, my weight came off. That was the most important thing. I didn't even have to count calories. This didn't even occur to me until one day I was out to dinner with a friend of mine, and he had a couple of bites left on his plate. The waiter came over and asked if he was done. And he said, yes. And I was shocked because I would have personally never, ever, ever let that plate go with 2 or 3 bites left. And I asked him, are you going to finish that? Why don't you just finish it? And he said, I'm satisfied. And I remember being a little confused by it. And when the waiter asked if we wanted dessert, and he said, no, I'm satisfied. Now, I was full, but I was definitely going to have dessert. There was no way we weren't having dessert. And I was disappointed when he said, I'm satisfied. I don't really have room for dessert. Because that had never occurred to me previously. I was always like, oh, we're out to dinner. Let's have some dessert. And I started to think about this idea of being physically hungry and not eating because I was emotionally hungry. And that's when I really started to think about it, that my way of eating and why I was yo-yo dieting for the last 20 years was because I ate for all kinds of reasons other than being physically hungry. And when my weight got to a certain point where I felt like, oh my God, I'm getting too big, I'm getting too fat, I would just white knuckle it and use whatever motivation I had and just basically cut my calories for those next 2 or 3 weeks and get it back to where I thought I was sort of okay with. It never occurred to me that I was eating when I wasn't physically hungry, that I was eating for all kinds of reasons. I was eating because I was uncomfortable. Every reason I was eating was emotional, and I was rarely physically hungry. I was eating by the clock. I was eating for every reason other than actually being hungry. It was rare when I was hungry. In fact, I didn't even know what real physical hunger was. And I went on this journey to only eat when I was hungry and stop eating when I was satisfied. And this was a whole new way of living because I wasn't always reaching for food for any reason other than when I was physically hungry. And it took me a long time to identify what physical hunger felt like because I hadn't known. Because ever since I could remember, since I was 5 years old, I remember eating a whole box of cereal. Now, luckily, as a kid, I was very active, so I was never heavy as a kid. But I literally ate a whole box of Captain Crunch when I was a kid. The whole box. My mother would be like, what the hell? So my yo-yo dieting was basically white knuckle, motivation, lose weight for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And I could do that. I was going to the fridge because it was taking me away from the task that I knew I had to do, but I didn't want to do, something I was avoiding. And once I got grasp on that, it became easy and the weight came off. And now I eat when I'm physically hungry and I stop when I'm satisfied. And I eat whatever I want. I don't count calories. I just eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm satisfied. I just let my body tell me when I'm hungry and when I'm satisfied. And what better way to eat than that? Your body knows.